Hi, in this lesson we are going to take a look at what we can do to limit access based on a user's role. So this is useful, for example, if you have users that will be admins and users that will just be going in and maybe entering data, but you don't want them to have access to settings. So previously, when we added the ability to make a user, we made it so you could designate different roles. Go to that page real quick here, our sign up page that we built, right? So this is the part you can make different roles. So role 1, role 2, role 3. Okay, so we're going to use that and we are going to say, let's designate what they can do. So as example, we're going to take a look at this sidebar here. And we have that put onto our send data to page here in my example. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so when you edit this element, you are able to only see, if you're in role 1, you will only be able to see enter data, dashboard, and logout. You won't see settings because we don't want people in role 1 to have access to settings. Now, when I opened this up, I had to turn on the show button because I had already hidden this. So I'm going to show you how that works and why it doesn't automatically show up. So if I click here, I can do element is visible on page load. If I check that, no matter what, it will show up. See how it dropped out of this tree here where it's hidden? Shows everything is visible. Same thing here. That's how it's automatically going to be created. Now, say setting is one that I don't want to show up unless they're in role 1. I can click here, element is visible on page load. Now, when I go into preview this page, which has the sidebar we're using for navigation, that's gone. You click here, nothing happens, right? Great. So let's go back here. Why is that happening? Well, we made it so it doesn't show up visibly, but we know it's there. So what we can do, we'll just go here. Let's pull this up a little bit. Element tree. Only show hideable. Where'd you go? Where is it to make you show up again? You are the RA. Need to go into the sidebar. That's my mistake there. All right, so edit your sidebar. Then it will be able to show up in here. And we'll click on settings. Great, so now settings shows up. See, when you're working with multiple parts, it's really easy to forget that maybe you have a sidebar until you're used to having it on every single page. Because the majority of this application, we haven't included a sidebar. I forgot a little bit. But clicking on settings here, visible on page load, no. Great. How do we make that visible for the people we want to see it? So maybe we're going to go in, we're going to click on, we'll start at the beginning here. Click on settings. Great. Then we're going to go to conditional. Make sure it's not visible on page load. So this is not checked. Visible on page load, not checked. Conditional. We want to define a new condition. Make sure we turn that on. A lot of times I'll make a condition and then I'll go back and realize I didn't actually turn the condition on when I go to test. So it's always good practice, turn the condition on. So when you're testing it, you know you're on. Now, this button here, right? So this button is visible. Great. Oh wait, sorry. When this button is visible is what we want to happen, not what we're saying when, right? So when this happens, something else is going to happen, right? So right now we're at the beginning of that statement. So when something happens. So when something happens, when the current user, which is me, the person logged in, user role is, and then we can just type out role 1. Right? So this is just establishing, it's going to say, hey, what's the role of the person? Is it role 1? Great. Select a property to change. Element is visible. We put a check mark there to say it is visible. Now, I'm going to go back to send data to page. I am going to go to my data and I am going to make sure I click app data, click all users. Previously, I made this role and need somebody logged in with it. So what I can do is I can click run as. This will log in as this user in that role. What that's going to help me do is establish settings does show up. Now, what if I want to test it against that? What if I want to make sure it doesn't show up for somebody in role 2? Well, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to the sign up page. I'll preview that real quick. I'm going to sign somebody up. Role 2, sign up. Great. Now I want to go into my data real quick just for testing purposes. Wait for that to update. There we go. I have someone with role 2. And I'm going to go to my send data to page. Then I'll go into my data and I am going to run as my user in role 2. And it doesn't show up. I click here, nothing happens. That is a really quick example of how that works. You can use that for a lot of different parts inside of your